Welcome to Generation Truth with Carey and Rebekah Charles,
where we declare that the Lord is good, His mercy is everlasting, and His truth endureth to all generations.
And the truth that we're going to go over today, which we started in the last episode, is preparing for your next step.
Now, Carey, this next step is what? From what to what?
So we're talking about really mainly high school or middle school, going into high school, and then after that's college. You know, we have a lot to look forward to in our future. And you think, what am I going to do now while I'm waiting?
Mm-hmm. You know, I used to be a teacher, and I have to be honest with you, most teenagers were not thinking about the future while they were taking their classes. Most of them were just like, can I get through high school? Can I get through this English class? Because that's the subject I was teaching. And some of them were, like, I'm thinking of one right now. Like, he had his whole life planned out, like, fantastic. But most of them were not in that boat.
Or if you're thinking about marriage, you know, you're thinking about that girl across the classroom or whatever it may be. But,
well, perhaps so. But God's word does indeed also teach this principle that we are to prepare for anything in our life. Without preparation, there's going to be failure. We kind of talked about that last week as well. So in Proverbs 24:27, God tells us to prepare thy work without and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. I've never built a house before, but I have people in my life and in my family that have, and it is a lot of work. You have to gather all the materials. You have to, even before that, you have to get a plan, and then you have to
get it approved by the county and get permits and get contractors laid out. There's a lot of preparation that takes place.
Mm-hmm. So that is probably even way more work than deciding on a college, but the same principle still applies. There is work that needs to be done to make a decision like this one.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you can be doing to prepare for your next step is seek godly counsel. Proverbs 13:10 says, "Only by pride cometh contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom." Proverbs 15:22 says, "Without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established." You know?
I love that verse. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed. I love that word purpose, right? It just sounds like it's a foundational word. It is. But without counsel, the things that you may have in your mind or the things that you may want to do in your future aren't going to be carried out because you didn't do the proper work ahead of time.
Absolutely. And, you know, honestly, you might go on the wrong direction.
Yeah,
actually, I would say you probably would go in the wrong direction if you didn't get godly counsel, because we understand that through the Word of God, God reveals His very clear will for our lives as far as going to church. We need to do that. We need to be praying. We need to be reading our Bibles. Those things are very basic things. But as far as those more intricate details, a lot of times God guides us through godly counsel, people that have been in the Word for a long time, people that have been in ministry for a long time. They've been to college. They could give you some things of what to expect. So Rebekah and I would like to encourage each of you that are listening, if you're a teenager in high school, or maybe you are even just in normal life, you could be any area of life. You could be 50 years old, you could be 30, you could be out of college, whatever it may be. Preparing for your next step, you should be seeking godly counsel. What job do I get? Seek godly counsel. You should talk to your parents. And if you're involved in a local church, which you should be, you need to talk to your pastor, maybe your youth pastor. I know that my youth pastor was a great help to me in giving me counsel. I had evangelist Byron Fox gave me several things as well. I got to travel with him. I learned so much from godly counsel.
In Proverbs 11, verse 14, it says, "Where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety." Kind of, Carey, what you were discussing a few seconds ago. If you just kind of go your own way, thinking that you know what's best for your life without consulting those who have been down that exact same path, well, that's a pretty dangerous place to tread waters.
Absolutely.
When you're alone. Another verse in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 9 says, "Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart. So doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel." I love that one because there's figurative language, right? I mean, we all like to smell nice. We all like to look nice. That's what sweetness of a man's counsel does for our soul. That's what it does for our future. It adds that sweetness. It adds that sure foundation that we're making the choice that God would indeed want us to make.
Yes. And then a second step that you could take is not just seeking godly counsel, but really, honestly, Rebekah, there's a lot of gifts and talents that are developed throughout your middle school and high school years, or even college, whatever it is that Clarence Sexton used to say that unconscious preparation. We say that so many times in our own family. There's so many times that you are preparing for your next step and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not faithful in the school or the church or the family that God has purposely placed you in, then it's going to be a lot harder for him to fulfill the vast, great will that he wants to accomplish in your life if you can't even be faithful in the seemingly small things.
Right. I mean, the Bible even talks about that being faithful in the little will make it where you're able to be faithful in the much.
Yes.
I know I'm paraphrasing there, but that is what the Bible teaches. And it's so important that we are realizing what kind of gifts. I would ask yourself that question. What kind of gifts do I have, or what abilities do I have? Maybe there's a job that you have right now in high school and you know what, you're doing very well at it. By God's grace. God's given the ability to do that. Maybe you're really good with computers, or maybe you're really good with speaking or writing. I think those are some things to consider, Rebekah, as we're going and looking at our next step. What about college? Should I go to college? We're going to talk about that later, but really, you should start evaluating where God has gifted you now.
Yes, absolutely. And, I like to look back in my own life, and I can remember the very first time I sang at this ODAX competition. I think I was in like third grade. And
I was like, what? How old was I?
I don't know.
I was like 3 or 4 years old.
Man,
Oh my goodness.
And then I also recall the very first time I tried to play an offertory at church. Okay,
that is nerve-wracking.
It is. The very first time I couldn't even remember the song, and I looked back at the main pianist and I said, what am I supposed to play? And she had no clue. So it was a bomb. It was not a good thing. But hey, that is where it started. Now I play the piano for churches, for the camp on a weekly basis. I've sung in multiple things.
Because
God has used that in my life to fulfill his will. But man, it started all the way back when I was in like third grade, or English. I loved English in high school, loved it. Well, I went to college and I majored in English, and then that ended up being my teaching job. And then now I'm even using that now at the camp. So just God's unconscious preparation in my life. Now, that's not to say that there may be things that you want to do that perhaps you don't have a gift, because I know what some of you are probably thinking right now, well, I'm not good at anything. I don't have any gifts. I don't have any abilities, which is not true. Many gifts, quote unquote, are developed by hard work.
Yeah.
You
can start working on several different things now and evaluating the gifts and abilities that you have now. And some of those gifts and abilities will not be there until you develop them.
Absolutely.
Like you have to start piano practice before you actually get to be an accomplished pianist. Unless you're just naturally gifted, you can play by ear and all that stuff. But you have to work at it. And God may not have you be an accomplished concert pianist one day. That's not what Rebekah's doing. However, she's using her gifts right now. And like with the English, same thing. For me, I just got plugged into ministry so much with preaching and leading ministries in the local church that God just kind of made that clear to me that this is where he wants me to is be faithful in the ministry where he has me. And then I ended up working one summer at camp, and I just realized, wow, I have such a heart for camp. You have to a lot of times take the step that you have in front of you in order to figure out the next 10 steps that are later on.
One step at a time. I'm glad that's how God designed our life to be lived. I don't have to walk 16 steps ahead, just one step at a time.
Absolutely. So when you go about today and you're thinking about what about my future, what am I going to do next, who am I going to marry, all those things, just start preparing now. Start by preparing financially, preparing by seeking godly counsel, preparing by evaluating the gifts and abilities that you have been given right now. And God will help you get to that next step when it arrives. Thank you so much for joining us.